In the quiet village of Abosi, there lived a maiden whose name was on every tongue. Her name was Adaeze. She was the only daughter of King Zenda, a princess whose beauty was praised in songs and stories. Her eyes shone like clear water. Her skin was smooth as palm oil. Her laughter, when it escaped her lips, was said to brighten even the dullest day. Yet, for all her beauty, for all her grace, there was something strange about her life. Adaeze had reached the age where maidens usually get married. Yet, her father's compound remained quiet. No wedding songs were sung for her. No bride price was collected. No suitor's family lingered at palace gate. At first, the villagers believed it was because of her father's pride. King Zenda was known as a man who valued his bloodline highly. He demanded bride price so great that even the wealthiest of the men turned away, shaking their heads. Others whispered that Adaeze herself must be too choosy, that she turned away the strong and handsome men who had come knocking. But the truth was harder to ignore. Suitors did come, young men with dreams of marrying the king's daughter, proud men with cows, goats, and bags of cowries. They arrived smiling, their families singing praises, their hearts filled with hope. Yet, within days, sometimes hours, those men would leave. No explanations, no farewells, only silence. They would simply vanish from Adaeze's life, leaving her alone once more. Before long, even her friends joined in the mockery. They laughed behind her back, calling her the flower that no one would pluck. In the market square, mothers used her as a warning to their daughters, saying, "Beauty alone is not enough. Look at Adaeze, the princess, the daughter of a king, yet still without a husband." Inside the palace, Adaeze's mother, Queen Amarachi, wept in silence. She watched her daughter dress herself each morning with dignity, watched her smile though her heart was heavy, and she wondered why the gods has closed the door of marriage against her child. Many nights the queen's pillow was soaked with tears, for she knew how cruel the world could be to a woman without a husband. And Adaeze, she bore it all with quiet grace. She heard the laughter, she felt the stares, but she told no one the truth. For hidden deep within her, there was a burden, a secret she had carried since birth, a burden so strange that even she could barely understand it. The villagers thought they knew the reason men avoided her. They thought it was pride, or harshness, or her father's high demands. But they were wrong. They were dead wrong. For Adaeze's secret was one she fought every day of her life. It was not written on her face, nor carried in her words. Yet it was strong enough to drive away every man who dared to draw near. And so the question remains, what was this secret? What was it that Adaeze carried? Something so heavy that it turned love into fear and hope into shame. My people, this story is about to take another turn. I welcome you to our channel. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe to our channel so that you get the amazing African folktales that we bring your way. Please sit down as we ride on this amazing story of Adaeze, the princess. Let's go back to the story. Adaeze was born with a strange condition, one she did not choose, one she could not fight. Whenever she became nervous, whenever her heart raced with anxiety, her body always betrayed her. A sharp, unpleasant odor would escape her skin, clinging to her clothes, filling the air around her. It was not always there. When she was calm, she smelled as sweet as the flowers her father's gardeners tended. But in moments of fear, excitement, or shame, the odor would appear, stronger than any perfume or soap could hide. As a little girl, she thought it was just part of growing. As a young maiden, she believed it was a curse. She tried everything to rid herself of it. She bathed more times than anyone else in the village. Sometimes 3 times, other times 4, even 5 times in a day. She rubbed herself with herbs the healers prescribed. She burned incense in her room, and she used perfumes sent from distant lands. Yet, she did. The condition remained. And so she grew up learning to hide her nervousness, pretending to be calm, even when her heart shook inside her chest. But people always noticed it. Her condition was like a shadow, silent, invisible at first, until it revealed itself in the most painful moments. It was this secret that chased away the men who came seeking her hand in marriage. They never spoke of it openly, for who would dare insult the daughter of a king? But once they caught the scent, once they saw that the beautiful princess carried such a hidden odor, they left, and they never came back. Adaeze carried this pain silently. She never told her friends. She never told her father, because she feared the disappointment that would be on her father's face. Only her mother knew about it, and the queen tried her best to comfort her daughter. But even a mother's embrace could not take away the fear of rejection that lived inside Adaeze's heart. The older she grew, the worse the whispers became. Each passing year added to her a very big shame. Every festival where her mates danced with their husbands and showed off their children, she stood alone. Every time a marriage was announced in the village, she looked herself in her mirror, asking why fate had chosen her for such suffering. She began to lose hope. She asked herself if she would ever be loved for who she was, or if her life would always be a tale of beauty that is wasted, a princess that is admired from afar but never chosen. It seemed as though the whole world had turned against her, all because of a burden she never chose to carry. But Adaeze did not know that life was about to test her in ways she could not imagine. For rejection was not the end of her story. It was only the beginning. So one night, unable to sleep, Adaeze slipped out of her chamber and went to the palace courtyard. The moon shone bright, silver light covering the compound. There, Adaeze knelt down and wept. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why give me beauty if it will only bring me shame? Why let me live if I am to walk this earth unloved?" Her sobs echoed through the night, though no one came to comfort her. For even in the palace, servants gossiped about their mistress. They pitied her, but none of them dared draw close to her. By dawn, Adaeze's face was swollen from tears. Yet she rose, she bathed herself, dressed, and carried herself with grace of a princess. To the outside world, she seemed strong, but inside she was breaking. Still, fate was not finished with Adaeze. For just as her shame reached its peak, just as she began to believe her life would never change, a stranger entered Abosi village. His presence would set in motion events that would shake the people's laughter into silence and turned their whispers into wonder. One morning, when the sun was still soft and the village was staring awake, a traveler walked into Abosi. His name was Obinna. He was not from the neighboring lands, nor from any family the villagers knew. He was a healer, a wanderer who journeyed from place to place, carrying nothing but a small sachet of herbs and a staff worn smooth by many roads. At first, no one paid him much attention. Strangers passed through Abosi now and then, but Obinna's eyes were calm, his voice gentle, and when he greeted the elders at the market square, even the harshest among them nodded with respect. He asked for nothing but shelter and the chance to trade his skills for food. Soon, word spread that the stranger had knowledge of plants, that his hands could heal sores and his teeth could calm the restless. It did not take long before Obinna heard the whispers of the village. In every corner, the name of Adaeze was spoken with pity and mockery. The stranger listened silently, but he did not join in their laughter. Instead, his eyes often drifted towards the palace whenever her name was mentioned. The first time he saw her, Adaeze was at the stream, drawing water with the other maidens. Her beauty struck him, just as it struck every man who had ever laid eyes on her. The sun caught the beads in her hair. Her wrapper swayed gently as she bent, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. Yet, unlike others, Obinna did not turn away when the other maidens giggled and whispered, pointing at her. He walked closer, offered her a greeting, and when she raised her eyes to him, he smiled. Adaeze hesitated. She had grown used to the pattern. A man would smile at her once, maybe twice, and then the distance would begin. But something about this stranger unsettled her, not in fear, but in the way his eyes had no judgment, no mockery, no shame. Still, her heart began to beat faster. Nervousness rose within her, and with it, the burden she dreaded began. She tried to step away, but Obinna did not move. He remained where he was, speaking kindly, asking her simple questions about the village, about the stream, about the life in Abosi. As her heart pounded, Adaeze waited for the familiar moment, the frown, the quick excuse, the hurried steps away. But Obinna did not leave. His smile remained. In that quiet moment, he spoke words that suited her soul. He began to teach her what to do to ward off the odor. He taught her to breathe slowly when her chest tightened, to steady her thoughts when panic threatened to betray her. He prepared herbs that calmed her body, not fully curing her condition, but easing its weight. For the first time in her life, Adaeze began to feel what she had never dared to hope for: peace. But peace was never something the village allowed her to keep. For soon, the people noticed the stranger's closeness to the princess, and tongues began to wag louder than ever. Has he not heard? They asked. Does he not know what she hides? Some laughed, certain that Obinna too would flee as the others had. Others shook their heads, pitying him for what they believed he would soon discover. Adaeze herself was torn. In her heart, she longed to believe Obinna was different. But in her mind, she feared the day he too would turn his back. Every moment with him was sweet, but every night she lay awake, waiting for it to happen, and still Obinna stayed. But would his courage last when the truth was laid bare before all? Or would the whispers of the village prove stronger than his promises? The day of the great festival arrived. In Abosi, the harvest season was a time of drums, feasting, and dancing beneath the moon. Families wore their finest wrappers. Children's laughter filled the air, and the elders sat in honor, watching the village come alive. On this day, Obinna made his move. He stood before the king, before the elders, and before all who had gathered. With his staff in hand and his head steady, he spoke clearly. Your Majesty, people of Abosi, I have wandered through many lands, but here I have found a jewel brighter than the sun. I wish to take Princess Adaeze as my wife. The crowd erupted into whispers and laughter. Some clapped mockingly, others shook their heads in pity. The king himself leaned forward and was curious. He loved his daughter, but he had grown weary of such declarations. One elder stood and said, Stranger, do you not know? Every man who sought her hand has turned away. Every suitor who swore loyalty fled. Will you too shame yourself before the people? Obinna's gaze did not waver. I know what they had whispered, he replied. I know the fear that follows her, but my heart does not seek perfection. My heart seeks her. The words silenced many, but still doubt lingered, and then it happened. As Obinna reached for Adaeze's hand, her chest tightened, her breath quickened. Her greatest fear had come upon her, not in secret, but before the eyes of the entire village. She gasped, her body trembling, her face pale. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. There it is, someone shouted. The smell, the odor. This is why no man stays. Another laughed. He will flee now, as the rest did. But Obinna did not flee. He did not recoil. He tightened his grip on her hand, steady and firm. He guided her breathing, whispering softly for her to look into his eyes. Slowly, Adaeze's trembling eased. Slowly, her breath found its rhythm again. The silence in the square was heavy. Every villager watched, expecting shame, expecting rejection. Instead, they saw strength. Obinna raised his voice. What you see is not a cause. What you mock is not weakness. It is but a burden she carries, one that does not diminish her worth. Love does not run. Love remains. The king's eyes widened, tears welling as he looked at the stranger who held his daughter's hand with such resolve and love. The villagers, struck with awe, found no laughter left upon their tongues. For the first time, Adaeze was not mocked, but seen, truly seen, and there, before all Abosi, Obinna placed his staff upon the ground, bowed deeply, and pledged himself to Adaeze. The king, moved beyond words, gave his blessings immediately. The crowd that once jeered now fell silent in respect. And when the drums began again, it was not for mockery, but for celebrations that filled the air. Adaeze's fear had not disappeared, but her shame had been broken. And the village learned that the true beauty is not without scars. It is the courage to love in spite of them. And so, the stranger who chose to stay became the son-in-law of King Zenda. The village of Abosi rejoiced, not only because their princess had finally found a husband, but because they had witnessed something greater than wealth, beauty, and status. Adaeze no longer hid in shame. Then, her burden had not vanished. It no longer ruled her. With Obinna by her side, she walked through the village with her head lifted high, her smile no longer shadowed by fear. Her mother, Queen Amarachi, who once wept in secret, now sang songs of joy, her heart at peace. The king, once worried that his daughter's fate would bring dishonor, now boasted of a son-in-law whose courage had restored dignity to his house. In the end, Adaeze's story was not of rejection, but of triumph, for she learned that being truly loved is not about being flawless, but about finding the one who sees your flaws and stays anyway. And so the story comes to an end. Thank you so much for staying with us on this story. Please subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories like this. We love you.